What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Cleveland Pulse YouTube channel. I'm your host, Justin Harold, and with me, as always, my co-host, Jeff Santa. Today, we are bringing you another installment into around the AFC North. Week 3, we're recapping Week 3. Obviously, the Bengals have a matchup tomorrow. We're recording this Wednesday. They will be on Thursday Night Football. Current standings as they are 2-1 for 3 teams and 1-2 for another. The Ravens, the Browns, and the Bengals are currently tied for first place in the AFC North, while the Steelers are in last place. So, with that all being said, my camera was freaking out there for a second. Jeff, how you doing, my guy?
I'm doing good. Feels good. It feels great. I feel like the Ravens, I don't know, maybe should be 0-3.
Play clock down to 4.
You don't have time to spike
2, 1.
That's fine, though. We don't really care.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
The Bengals look good.
And going deep into the end zone and caught by Chase.
And the Steelers, maybe just a couple of things could be going on with the Steelers. You hate to speculate early, but they could be bad, or they could just be off to a slow start. They were off to such a fast start last year, so maybe it's just the reverse of that. But I'm leaning that not a whole lot of offensive identity over there, as we've discussed in prior episodes.
First and 10.
Absolutely. And who knows, even the Bengals, maybe that game is more because the Bengals played the Steelers, if that's what you guys did not know. And so maybe the Steelers are just bad and the Bengals got to look good because of that. But also injuries for the Steelers defensively that game. So, but we're gonna save that one for after we talk about the Ravens game, which Jeff was alluding to. They could be 0-3 because he thinks that they probably should have lost to the Chiefs, which is very fair. But also, if you didn't know, Justin Tucker broke a record for the longest field goal ever to win this game in the last seconds of the fourth quarter. 19-17, the Baltimore Ravens beat the Detroit Lions. From what I heard about this game, I have not watched the recap of this one, but from what I heard of this game, it probably should have been more in Baltimore's favor, but because of one Hollywood Brown, the wrong Hollywood in the AFC North, but because of him, there were a few missed touchdown opportunities, and the game was much closer because of it for it. So, Jeff, did you by any chance watch any highlights or hear any recap that you want to talk about?
I only watched the last drive, and the worst part about the last drive is that there was clearly a delay of game, unless the clock operators were just lost, which could be the case. You never know if the clock operator is exact to what the game clock says actually on the field, mostly due to camera angles in that case. But it seemed like it was double zeros for a couple of seconds, no flags thrown, they get a playoff, and then the 66-yard field goal. That's pretty typical for them as far as Justin Tucker, 50 straight made. Yeah, too many field goals made well in the fourth quarter and in overtime. So that's a huge asset for them. But that was a close game in Detroit.
Yeah, and a lot closer. I mean, I'm going to actually have to just go back and watch this game or at least the highlights, because I'm looking at the team stats. While we all know that the Lions are a horrendous team and probably will be contending for the number 1 overall pick this year, I'm looking at third down efficiency for the Ravens, 1 of 10.
Ooh.
That is insane. They were beaten on first downs of obtaining first downs, 15-22. They threw an interception. Lamar threw an interception, and they lost the time of possession. So really, when you base it off of that, the Lions probably should have won this game. However, the Ravens, a much better team in general, top to bottom. So Lamar, 16-31 for 287 yards, a touchdown, an interception, throwing the ball, and 7 rushes for 58 yards. Mark Andrews had 5 catches for 109 yards. But outside of all that, honestly, a super close game, and obviously something that is worth noting because we will face the Detroit Lions down the line. But Outside of all that, Jeff, anything that you would like to note before we move on to our next game?
Nope. I think it's live or die through Lamar over there in Baltimore, at least with all their injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see. They just activated Rashard Bateman.
Yeah, from the IR, along with someone else, Miles Boykin.
Yep. So they get some wide receiver help there for Lamar. So with that being said, we'll move on to our second game, which also includes two teams from the AFC North. The Bengals versus the Steelers at Heinz Field. 24-10 win for the Bengals over the Steelers. An interesting stat line to look here. We have on one side Joey Burrow only throwing 18 times, as opposed to Ben Roethlisberger throwing 58 times for 2 interceptions and a touchdown. Joey Burrow 3 touchdowns and an interception. That just immediately sticks out to me because, one, that means Joey Burrow did not have to do a lot to win this game. And what he did was plenty enough, obviously super efficient, highly efficient, and very effective with 3 touchdowns. Joe Mixon, again, getting 18 carries for 90 yards. But I think the storyline is more towards, Ben Roethlisberger and this Steelers offense that just, like you were alluding to earlier, Jeff, just doesn't have an identity. They don't know what they're doing. Like we've kind of ragged on for the past couple of weeks, drafted Najee Harris. He still hasn't done anything.
Man, we're not going to push the panic button.
And, I lied. He hasn't done anything running the ball, but in this game, he was their leading receiver for 14 receptions and 102 yards. So that's kind of absurd, but what are you seeing here?
The Bengals through 3 weeks are probably just as balanced as we are, which is not what I expected. I thought they would definitely be throwing the ball a little bit more, but you do have probably the third best running back in the AFC North, outside of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, because they're obviously the top two, especially with our line. Their offensive line isn't as good, but I like what they're doing over there. I think that's better than having Burrow throw, 40, 50 times a game, giving the ball to Mixon. I don't even really know who their backup is, P. Ryan. I know they had Giovanni Bernard last year, so I think that's a good mix. They're a tough team to match up with downfield with some of their wide receivers. Yeah, but the Steelers, I don't know, 14 receptions for Najee Harris. They should have just drafted a wide receiver, honestly, if they were just going to use him like that. He can't run the ball. Big Ben looks old. That's a tough look at home, only scoring 10 points. They really just can't score. I mean, they've had seasons in the past where their offense obviously hasn't been the main, part of their team. The defense is usually what keeps them together, but with some of their injuries, they're not doing a whole lot of good on either side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, I'll make it a point because I think that, I definitely made fun of it. I made light of it. The Jamar Chase pick is still, I think, one that is playing out to their benefit greatly right now. Caught 2 touchdowns this past weekend and had 4 receptions for 65 yards. But yeah, Joe Burrow, I mean, the Bengals they're 2-1, and I think their win-loss is kind of weird. They beat the Vikings week 1, 24-27. Then they went and lost to the Bears 20-17, and they beat the Steelers 10-24. So kind of weird. We're going up against the Vikings this week, and it gives me hope that the Bengals won 27-24, but that's week 1 and they did it in overtime. So we'll see what happens in our game, and we'll talk about that in our preview. But the Bengals surprisingly doing off to a way better start than I thought they would against, teams that I think, at least for the most part, I think the Vikings is a good win. And obviously the Steelers, a divisional opponent, a great win.
Yep.
So obviously tied for the first in the division with us. But Jeff, before we go on to our game, anything else?
Nope.
Okay. So as everyone knows, or hopefully, the Browns, your Brownies, beat the Bears 26-6 in a defensive rout. Giving Justin Fields, the rookie, the welcoming that most rookies I would say deserve, because I like saying that they deserve to get kind of beaten up in their first games. But Justin Fields only throwing the ball 20 times and only having 6 completions for 68 yards, while Baker Mayfield, on the other hand, 19 completions, 31 attempts, 246 yards, a touchdown. But the two-headed monster of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt ran wild. 84 yards for Nick Chubb, 81 for Kareem, a touchdown. I mean, offensively, just kind of what you expect from our offense, but defensively, a stellar game. Obviously, we generated a ton of pressure and accumulated a ton of sacks. Myles Garrett having the single game record for sacks for a Brown, 4.5, which is insane. He is now the leading he leads the league in sacks as of right now. So, Jeff, with that all being said, obviously we already gone through our recap, but is there anything else that you want to note outside of what we may have talked about earlier?
Yeah, there is, because I'm seeing this around social media, and I've talked to Justin a little bit about it, specifically yesterday. I don't understand where this notion is coming from that our offensive line has played bad so far. I think that, optically, it's tough to disagree because of the sack numbers, but it's like at the same time, you can't, here's the offensive line's job. Make sure we run the ball well and make sure that Baker is protected. I would say probably maybe 50% of the league is a little bit too much, but I'd say there's probably 9 or 10 teams that don't do either. And I'd say there's probably, teams after that who don't do either extraordinarily well. So it's like, I don't know. I put so much stock into both sides of the trenches being, part of the bigger part of your success as a team. If you have a good D line and even like a good front seven and you have a good offensive line, you're going to be, hopefully competitive and in games. Same way, why people say don't pay running backs, because if an offensive line is good, you can basically hand anybody the ball off. True to an extent, obviously playmakers are playmakers, but people are saying our offensive line played atrocious. We rushed for 200 yards. You can't say they played bad and that we rushed for 200 yards. Has Baker been sacked probably more than we would like so far through 3 weeks? Yes, but I think that the Chiefs overperformed week 1. I think we have left tackle injuries between, a couple of people, and the Bears front seven is pretty good. So I just wanted to get that out there, that if we rush for 200 yards, we have 2 running backs with 90 yards rushing each. So they did not play atrocious.
Yeah, I agree with you. I told you in confidence that I wouldn't say that they played atrocious, and I wouldn't say that if you're trying to say through the 3 games that they've even played, anything less than good.
Right.
I think you'd be hard pressed to say that they've played anything less than good. Did last week look bad optically? Yes, I think so. Just because we saw at least 2 times where our left tackle may have just watched as a guy went by him and sacked Baker. But outside of that, I think we've been great offensively. Obviously we've had slow starts and such, but besides that, I think we're still moving in the right direction. And as a team, I think last week was the closest thing that you got to a complete game, and hoping to continue to build that trend moving into the Vikings game, which we are going to get into in our next video. But Jeff, do you have anything else before we end it?
Nope, I'm good.
Awesome. Well, like I said, we're about to record our preview, but thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the bell notification, leave a like on the video, leave a comment. Let us know what you guys are thinking of the AFC North through 3 weeks, what your thoughts are on the Steelers being at the bottom and everyone else being tied for first. And with that being said, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace. All right. My lighting's off again today. Some bullshit.
It's tough down there.
Yeah, it's not optimal, but it's whatever. We're getting the job done is what matters. So, do you want to continue? Do you just want to, I don't know how you edit the video. We could just, have a moment of silence for like 10 seconds so you have a clear gap of when, the next video starts.
Yeah, we're good. I just cut it right quick so we could start it whenever.
Word. All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right. Actually, let me try something really quickly here. I didn't want to work earlier, but I also have to worry about the amount of shit I have plugged in because sometimes the fucking power actually goes out.
No, that's a terrible.
Yeah, it trips very often. It still kind of sucks. I don't know what's up with that, but whatever.
Is Galvin
right.
going to play this week?
Who?
Alvin Cook.
Dalvin Cook. You know what? All I know is that I saw that he spoke at like their practice today.
Oh, really?
I have no idea actually. That would be I wonder if there is
I think they haven't projected for fantasy points, but I don't know if that means anything.
Let me look up like Trotter and see if he has a injury report for like both teams. That might be the only thing that I want to hold off on.
I mean,
Would
either way, they're probably going to have a good running attack, but
do you want to hold off on this video till tomorrow morning?
yeah, we could.
Yeah, I have free time tomorrow morning. I'm not too pressed about it. I just thought that